There we go. This is the one I've decided to bin the stuff as we're sort of a plastic impregnated cotton, and while it was sort of tearing, it's still a bit sus, too much plastic as is. We assert this roller is equal, if not superior, to the best quality imported. It is made in Australia from Australian and British products and is fully guaranteed by the manufacturer against all faults. 5/16 roller. Let's have a look at the effort going in to make this thing. I don't know if this is done plywood style or how it's done, but it's like a spring-loaded lugs on the end, and the spring is of course inside, and it's literally just like a wooden pipe with a few staples in it to hold the said thing on, I assume. Yeah. See how that goes inside the fire. Probably unravel a friggin' million miles an hour. No, it won't. Old springs don't unravel a million miles an hour because they're already rusty and they're already fucked and they're already brittle, and they just sort of go crack and just fall to bits in the fire. And you take out some ash with a heap of rust in it, and then you find a spring in there that's probably broken in 2 or 3 pieces, and put that in scrap metal. It's yeah, anyway, I've pretty much rounded up everything aside from a couple of newspapers and an old cotton singlet, which I'll also throw in, but of course that amount of newspapers there will get me fire started. Here's all those splinters and little bits and pieces that I didn't quite get from the demolition of the gable, little offcuts and rubbish in there, so chuck them in as well. So anyway, I'd probably better start up a washing machine to have some clothes to dry so I can then start that fire. Alright, well, it doesn't want to show properly, but a quick change of pace means that we've decided to cook up lunch on the wood stove. So I've moved the box out of the side that I was going to move, which would be that one there. A pretty cooler one, and this one too. I realised I might have to shuffle around a few things in my laundry out there to be able to make the best use of that. There's shelves that aren't stacked there, but then I've got shit in front of the door, that some of which my father dumped on me the other day, including a sawhorse, which I believe can probably go in this front veranda. You know, of all the places I've got here that are under roof coverage, I mean, this, you know, half the roof of this damn thing was replaced the other day. You guys saw it. And yet, when I come out here, all I've got is a couple of bits of wood, more wood, 2 refrigeration compressor crankheads, one of which is C-solid, so I probably should pitch that out in friggin' scrap metal, and a blower, and a yeah, that's actually a rocket tube for holding RPG canisters. Certain family friend who isn't the brightest tool has a obsession with, he was in the reserve military at one point, he has obsession with any containers and anything military related, and he's got a couple of old military jeeps and whatnot, but he gave that to me uncle, and quite frankly I don't know why that's under there either. Yeah, and the weed eater, if I didn't mention it. But, you know, I've got bloody near nothing under here. So this stupid sawhorse that's bogging the room up. And a few other stupid things. Like I got a blower that I tried to sell, couldn't get rid of. Tried to sell it at the same joint that's got my hedge trimmer. They just said, no, not happening. We're not taking that because nobody will buy it because they're so cheap already to buy. And, you know, to buy new, they're so cheap. And I might throw that in here along with a chair. It's a camping chair that I've got and a few other bits and pieces. Like this is all undercover, you know. All the blooming roof's been redone, siliconed up, you know. New roof screws and all that sort of stuff. And yet we've got almost nothing here. Meanwhile, the places that have got other roofs, as you can see in the veranda here, friggin' choking to death with shit, and so I should make a point of trying to put a bit of stuff in that front veranda to free up some of the spaces inside here. including probably put that bloody wheelbarrow outside. Anyway, as I said, a lot of the stuff's about moving things around and just stacking them neatly, and this is one of the ones that's got to go somewhere. This is all the blasted ice cube container things I've got. I've got bloody shitloads of them. I mean, there's probably more than 15 of them in there. I got about 5 off that old guy, that old relative who died around the time I was with the plasterer, and all in an attempt to use all this in my propane freezer if need be. But I didn't even... Well, I used that for meat this year, but that was my parents' house on grid. So anyway, things like this have to be stored somewhere, and I've got to basically move shit out of my laundry to be able to get into the door of my storage area and make a go there. I've got a great heap of cement there as well, which I should get out of the bloody way because it's right in the middle of where I walk into the shelves. And I've still got to put the propane freezer back in there too once everything else is sorted, so I've got to leave a gap for that. It's already got a gap, so that'll be alright. But anyway, I think it's about time we fire this whole thing up. I've got stuff in it. There'll probably be a mouse nest. Open this. No. Bunch of old tissues I blew my nose with, and that's been there for a year. I stood on the last one, so I've tried to reassemble that last one to get the measurements, and gone and made another damper cover, because the other one was no good after I stood on it, obviously. So I had to go through that before we could even go anywhere. Anyway, fire it up. Unfortunately, because this is... geez, I wish you guys could see this thing properly. Give us a second here. I've got the bloody light on, doesn't make a difference. So we get out the search and rescue grade high intensity discharge torch, and now you're going to have a good look at my bloody stuff. You can put bits of wood in that about 2.5 foot long, which means that all that stuff I got from around the corner won't actually need to be cut up because I can just throw it straight into this. I'll give this a quick wire brushing on the top, but most of that is actually creosote that's fallen out of the chimney. And then we shall fire it up and start cooking that stuff. Wombok. Well, we're alright now, but initial start up without a damper is just a shitstorm of smoke. I try to get a certain thing to sort the smoke out and probably just fucking made it worse. I'll show you something very interesting though. Let's look for a minute at this little piece there. A little bit of hole. Runs beautiful with a damper. Now, that's me damper there, propped by a bit of wood. Don't whinge and bitch that that wood's going to catch a light, because it's not, because I've been doing it like that for a couple of years. There's your little hole with creosote around it. Sometimes it comes out between the gap between what you can't see, the hot plate, and the rest of the sides, and I can take the hot plate off with this little fandangle, because we have two, there you go, 2 half chain links welded to a bit of plate that is 1/2 inch plate, even though it really should have been 1/8 inch plate, but that was part of the parts that were missing, along with that flue at the back, and along with some of the bottom which was rotting out, and the ashtray and whatnot. Now, let's keep our eye on this little piece up the top, and I will open and close the main lighting hatch here. Smoking, no smoke. Smoking, no smoke. Smoking, no smoke. Smoking, no smoke. There is a literally second by second, thing where if this is open it smokes, and quite literally a second later if you close it, it won't smoke anymore. It is a direct correlation, was what I was trying to say. This is made by Anderson and Ritchie in Fitzroy, which is in the state capital, rather close to the actual city suburb, I think. I think it's just on the edge of the city suburb. Sort of sheet metal and cast iron mixture. No idea of the date. Any of you guys do know a bit about these, just say something in the comments, but I assume it's probably built in the 1920s. Very, very thick fire bricks in it. I'm talking like shit. Damn near 4-inch thick fire bricks in it. One of which you can see through the hole there. Yeah. Does me pretty good anyway. You see, just a little bit of smoke sometimes comes out around the edge of that hot plate. You don't scrub the creosote off the bottom of it, because that is what actually gives it its seal, the built up of soot and creosote. And there would be a bit of creosote there that's fallen out from the rest of the old chimney here. That flue goes up several feet into the chimney and then just continues to the top, where I've got a giant flashing on the top, which some of you guys would have seen, with the changeover of 20-watt solar panel for the solar system in the bathroom. And there's, yeah, big flashing and 2 little Chinaman's hats. Anyway, I suppose I had better stick on my pot. Yeah, we're cooking with wood. Probably hear, I don't know if you can hear in the background, maybe not, the generator running. So, getting ready to hang some clothes up because I've got 2 lots and I've just got a 3rd lot rinsing out now. Alrighty, well I cooked up the wombok, a Chinese barrel cabbage that I had left, and ate a heap of that, and then boiled the kettle, and then about halfway through a few spuds and a bit of penne pasta, which I had sitting in my little, it's got a silhouette, isn't it, in my little white steel cabinet here. No, it's still not going to show up. You guys have seen it enough times anyway. And then I used a bit of the water that was still in the kettle that was sort of lukewarm and the existing water in the pot, and found I had another bag of it not quite used up in here, and so that's boiling right now. Not exactly boiling, only simmering. Generally speaking, everything you put on this wood stove will simmer, but it won't boil. But if you put in wattle, which is that stuff I ripped out with the chain on the driveway with my car, and tends to really stuff your blades up, so I only cut it up with a reciprocating saw. If you put some of that in, shit will start boiling over the sides and going all over the hot plate, which is not sort of what I want. So, yeah, at the moment I'm just using up some of the other wood that I cut around near the IBCs that was all half rotted shit and had bugs in it and whatnot, and I've just been feeding that rubbish into this wood stove. What I'm likely to do after this is I've got to do a bit of washing for a while just to get the last load of washing out. Then I'll probably go and fill the kettle right up and put it on there and get the kettle to boil. And then I've got some eggs I just set in there, so I've got to put a bit more water in there, and I'll put that on. What I aim to do when I do have the wood stove running often enough, I'll just make a coffee on the propane stove. This is usually during the winter, and the years that I have used the wood stove quite a lot. I'll make a coffee or whatever using the kettle on the propane stove initially, and then I'll start boiling eggs or doing whatever I've got to do on the wood stove. Or I'll have boiled eggs from the night before, like those ones will be, and I'll just reheat them a little bit. So I'm not eating cold boiled eggs, I'm eating sort of warmish boiled eggs. What I do when I get this wood stove running is I try and cook as much shit as I can to the point that I'm cooking shit for tomorrow. Like this is lunch today. I don't like cooking meat on there in case I get fat, and then we have burny, stinky fat on the hot plate. So I'll be cooking some chops with a frying pan on the propane stove later, but the pasta that's on there now will be for tonight's tea. I've got today's lunch and some cup of tea, and tonight's tea, like tonight's dinner, is cooking on there now, and then tomorrow morning's breakfast is going to be cooking on there, as well as reboiling the kettle so I can do the dishes. You try and knock over as much shit as you can in one hit, and in a way it's sort of better for me because I've got the bad habit of not eating very much. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Like last night's dinner was 5 slices of bread with flipping margarine on them. I mean, no wonder sometimes my relatives tell me I look thin, but when I start using the wood stove, I'm looking for so many damn things to cook that I end up eating terribly well, because I'm always looking for an excuse of what do I got to cook next, what do I got to cook when this is finished, what do I got to... And it sort of simmers slow, plus it costs me nothing to use it. And in that time you keep thinking of more things because you know this is going to just about be finished in a little while. So, and as a result I end up eating a ton of food during the times that I run the wood stove. And, you know, I'll do that whole thing of trying to make a meal for now, trying to make tonight's tea and tomorrow's breakfast and, you know, boil the kettle for the dishes all in the one hit. It's sort of like you knock one over and the next and the next and the next. And you cook more than you otherwise would with a propane stove because you can just turn the propane stove on and off. But once I get the wood stove going, I like to keep it going and then sort of make a point of trying to knock over a whole stack of stuff, you know. And there's been times where I've made bloody near 2 days' worth of food, you know, with this thing going for 5 hours early one Saturday morning sort of thing, just for the whole point of trying to make the most of it. When I've got it running, I end up doing, you know, 2 days' worth of food sort of thing. And that's the way you want to sort of run, unless you want to let the whole thing cool down and then light it up again and stuff ass around trying to get it running and then get it hot again and then let it cool down again. I'd rather just cook a whole stack of stuff and then just give it a quick bloody 5-minute reheat on the propane stove the next day when I do go to eat it. Alrighty, I'm going to cut these up. This morning I've been cutting up all this. A lot of this is stuff that doesn't look too bad, but it's actually pretty rubbishy. And there's still a few little bits up back there I'm going to cut up with a reciprocating saw. Here I was trying to avoid cutting wattle with this miter saw, and it looks like I've cut wattle with a miter saw. Oopsie. Here's some of the other stuff. It's real rubbishy. Oh, sort of going rotten around the outside edge and all that. Yeah. Yesterday I got quite a bit done, and remember there's a couple of lumps of grass I was saying way out there past that hump of dirt where I was getting a lot of spanners from. They're like 1/8 of an inch steel plate that's just punched out to, you know, almost guillotined out to the shape of a spanner. And I had a whole bunch of them and a few bits and pieces coming out near one clump of grass. Well, I found where that clump of grass was. And, well, I started poking around with a big nail, like a bridge spike, which is basically a giant nail that I found. And I just kept poking in that grass until I hit solid things and then try to drag them out and continued on and got quite a bit out, and that was I'd done that last night. Just give it a sec. And here we are here. Got out another old silver spoon and silver fork. They seem very brittle, the metal in those. I don't know what's going on there. All those old ones that I'm digging up, they're terribly brittle. But yeah, have a bunch of different bolts and whatnots. 2 rubber O-rings. I don't know where the hell they come from or what they even fit. This, I believe, I mean, the glass is broken out and all gone, but it's a string line that you put, like it's a level that you put on a string line, and your thread goes through there, or you can actually fit it through the little thing there, and you hang it on a string line that they sometimes use to help them line up their brick walls, and then your little spirit level sits in there, and sort of, yeah, you get an idea if your brick wall's going up straight or not. So it's always to be used, obviously, on the horizontal. Don't exactly know what this is, but it's probably some horsey related thing or something for some cart or something, because it's reasonably thick metal. So yeah, I also got I have to get all those and throw them in my scrap metal in a minute. I also got all this old crap that I had sitting here. There was a whole stack of radiator pine. I mean, look, all the stuff from there right back through to here is basically ash. No shit. Very, very large radiator pines that were there. Some of them full of sap, others of them just completely rotten. Pushed them up with a front end loader and burnt them, and they burnt primarily for a couple of days and then kept smouldering for literally 2 weeks, and it's all the ash. But these are some of the bits that were left behind in the ash, so I've just got all these and chucked them in my stash of random shit here. There's something else I've done too. Yeah. Remember the big root that was sitting here? Well, I went to it with a chainsaw. These were chainsawed off last year, most of these. And I split 1 or 2 of them a little bit more because I reckon they needed more splitting. And with a couple of these ones I cut last year. But the bulk of this, excluding that one, is just the stuff here, except that one, is just cut yesterday. So you can see where I've cut a lot of it, and then I've tried to split a lot of it, and pretty much all of it's in a size that will now fit in. Some of it, like that, will be a tight squeeze, and there were some that, yeah, you know, I cut it to a reasonably large size and then still managed to split it again. Because of the way the roots were on this, it was a fucking nightmare with the grain. Like, you can't just take to this and just split it. I mean, look at the grain in this. Look. I mean, that's, most people get nice logs out of the trunk that split perfectly vertical, and this, the grain curves right around the circle, and, you know, it goes around a bloody knot. Like, it's just a frickin' nightmare. And this is the sort of results you get when you split it with the grain. That piece come off of that, obviously, but it's there's the grain here, down, around, and then curves right that way. Needless to say, with grains that curve like that, your splitting is rather impaired, and you need to use a chainsaw quite a bit. So that's what I've done. And I also got stuck into this little bastard here too, which was yeah, a little bit longer. It's a little bit hollow, and the borers have got into it kind of badly, but all this will now fit in anyway, and I can use it. About oh shit, it's like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I come out and gave this a bit of a swing with a log splitter too. This is the other smaller root, and blew the shit out of it. But I probably should pick up the smaller shards and take them in before they get, you know, lost in mud if we go and have an inch rain or whatever. And it always happens. Everything always gets sort of trampled into the mud during winter, whether the sheep trample it into the mud or what. It all just sort of gets a little bit lost. And so I'll make an attempt to get all the smaller bits into a bucket and burn that in the wood stove or wood heater or whatever, because I ain't going to lose a piece this size, but I'm likely enough to lose bits like this and maybe even that under the mud. Yeah. I think finally these are starting to get closer, because I'm seeing one that looks like a bird's had a go at. Another one that's nearing getting ripe. And yeah, I think some other things maybe having a few for themselves. Don't know about eating the leaves. Wouldn't be surprised if they were, but I had old door knocker hanging around here the other day, eating out of there, went under there, out where I showed the stack of bolts there a second ago. She was out eating bit more wire. She was out eating a box sawn out there, and I'll be surprised if she's eaten a couple of these for herself anyway. She's a gluttonous bastard, I'll put it like that. And he's used to eating fruit and other stuff that most sheep don't eat, so Black Kitty's like walking behind me, spying at her. What's this thing, what's it going to do? And then she's sort of creeping up, stalking it, but sort of keeping a distance in case the sheep does something that she doesn't expect. It's funny watching cats stalking sheep. They're a bit fearful, but they're trying to work out what it is, sort of thing. It's funny. Oh yes. I finally done it! Yes. Now the propane stove. And the wood stove, which you can't see. I put up this little rack. I'm going to be sort of pretty jammed for room. That's the end of the table there. There's the edge of the rack there when I go and cook on the propane stove here. Anyway, I now have a place to put the pots and whatnot. We've got, you see some of the framing of this. Well, obviously there's more framing at the back, holding this mesh, which is in part of the stud wall. Same on the right side. But the bottom one, get back far enough and see if you can see this. Yeah, see how, you see the wood stove sort of silhouetted against the silver paper at the back there. And either side there's sort of bricks. And of course you've got a giant lintel bar over the top, because that used to be a fireplace. And one of the bricks that's been held by the lintel bar, I've actually drilled into it and put what's basically like a diner bolt, but it's a diner screw. It's 6mm, which is basically 1/4 inch, and I banged it in. But would you believe it? Yeah, hammer drill function. This friggin' thing has hammer drill function. And it's 12 volts. It's actually, I've never actually tried it on a hammer drill, and she went just straight into it. Not a problem. When you get up to like 10mm, which is basically 3/8, even some of the 18 volt ones are a bit slow. That are not the SDS, that are just your basic normal drill. But this one went in pretty quick. Either it was old bricks or it's a friggin' good drill. I think it's actually old bricks, to be honest. Tried to fit the screw in, couldn't get it quite in. I thought, son of a bitch, what's going on? So I pulled the screw back out, and then I put the drill piece back in the drill and tried to get it in there. And then I sort of put my finger when I hit the bottom, pulled the drill out, and then compared the depth that I got the drill in to the length of the screw. What do you know? I was about friggin' almost 1/4 inch. Not deep enough, so I drilled it about another more than 1/4 inch deeper, and yeah, then we were fine. Then I whacked her in and tightened her up with the same flaming drill with the Phillips head driver. Just switched it back to first gear instead of second gear, and that's all held on with something that I bet you can see. Yes. Little sheet metal bracket my grandfather made up out of stainless steel. So that's a stainless steel bracket. So that's good. That's sort of the kind of thing you want to have around steam and other shit that is associated with, and water and pots, things like that that are associated with cooking. It is a little bit annoying. It is a little bit out too far. It's like 1.5 foot out, you know, and I only sort of needed about 1 foot out. But anyway, now I've got a rack to throw all that stuff on without having to go to the old stove one behind the whole drying rack /tub shenanigan here. Usually I sit stuff on that, but Trouble is, like, the shit that gets inside the roof and all that, through the valley gutter and all that, and it's all these bits of cypress pine crap. I mean, there it's sort of a bit caught up with the spider webs and whatnot. I've filled up some of the gaps. I've got to trim some of that at some point. With expansion foam, I really need a sort of a trim along here, but even then it might get through, even if I had a little wooden trim, which I've sort of got a few of those sort of things. It still might get through, and you know, all these leaves and shit come down. And of course, you know, like it's coming there and things there, and then you look and you got this, like a, you know, a bit of cypress pine stuff, or a bit of leaf or some shit floating in your pot of boiled eggs, and you think, oh, that's just great, isn't it? It's not too bad in a pot of boiled eggs, but I don't like it in the frying pan. Yeah. Anyway, that should alleviate a lot of that. Oh, you can actually see it reasonably well now. Anyway, yeah, I went and got a whole heap of that old chipped up random bullshit. Jesus, this is a shit of a fucking camera. This is all the stuff for us splitting up that big hunk of friggin' almond root. And just all bits of bark and splinters and shit that come flying off. And so I've fed about a bucket worth of that into the wood stove, and the rest of it is smaller sticks that are probably about 1 inch diameter sticks. And before too long, I might grab that other pot that's sitting on there and cook up a bit more of these greens that are starting to go a little bit saggy in the fridge that you probably have to eat for tea and blah blah blah. Maybe a bit more pasta. It's the time now. It's basically 4 o'clock. Anyway, I might go do a bit more crap down the paddock before then. Been down there getting out some of those weeds I was saying about. And here comes the wind. Yeah, it's the bastards there. I've got a great heap of them so far. There's other bits of wood on the fence line and bits of sheet metal and bullshit, so I might go pick some of that up. And, yeah, bring it up here.